Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Aaron Diaz, and you're listening to episode number 20 of Live the Good Life from the podcast studios of Aaron's Wine Chronicles corporate headquarters in Richland, Washington. You know, when it comes to living the good life, USDA prime and luxury high-grade meats are at the top of the list for me. Today, I'm going to be interviewing an expert when it comes to what I call luxury meats. We'll be discussing his experiences in the meat industry, his knowledge about prime and Wagyu meat, and we'll learn about his offerings at a local high-end meat emporium. My guest is known throughout the Pacific Northwest as Jose the Butcher, and he prepares the amazing cuts of high-grade meat at Juanito's Prime Meats, located in Kennewick, Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Jose Rodriguez to the show. Yeah. How about that? Sounds like they like you.
I'm super happy to be here. Super happy to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure.
I'm actually very excited to be talking about Wagyu and prime meats. That's actually, I could talk about that all day.
It's what makes life good, I'm telling you. Thanks very much, Jose, for taking the time out of your day to come down and join our podcast. Why don't you just give us a brief background and introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, pretty much I work at Juanito's Prime Meats. I love cutting meat. I've been cutting meat since I was 15 years old.
So for about 3 months? No, we'll get into that in a minute.
Good one. Yeah, that's what I love to do. I don't have very many hobbies other than cooking meat, cutting meat, and learning more about meat.
So as you've gotten into cutting the meat, you've also gotten into experiencing the meat, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, at your age, okay, so the first time I had Wagyu or Kobe or, A5 steaks or anything like that, I was well into my, late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
I mean, I didn't even know what it was. And if I would have gotten sticker shock at that time in my life, like, you're going to pay what for that? I'm like, hell no,
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and about ready to die, I'm going to eat the hell out of it, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's cool. I mean, at a young age, you are getting exposed to the very best meats in the world, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But again, I just want to thank you for being here. It's great having you on the show. So we have a tradition here at Aaron's Wine Chronicles. While we're in the studio, it's customary for us to enjoy a libation, which is basically a good drink, as we're recording. And I have to say that today I am drinking an 18-year age single malt Scotch. It's Glenfiddich, and it's really good. I really, really love it. Now, what you decided to choose, Jose, was the 18-year extremely rare Glenmorangie single malt Scotch. And, we put the Scotch over rocks and, let that water just kind of mix a little bit with the Scotch, and it's really good. So tell me, what do you think about yours?
Well, this is actually my first time trying Scotch, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's a different experience. I definitely wouldn't have done this on my own.
Yeah.
But now that you're telling me about it, I think I would probably try it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of living the good life. And I just, stretching out your experiences. Yeah. I mean, you did it with meat. Yeah. Maybe someday we'll get you back over here and smoke some cigars too. I don't know if you do that or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this started. I do have a question for you, Jose. I had it actually the very first time I met you, because if I was a doorman at a club, I'd card you every time you walk in the door. You have a baby face, you look really young, and maybe it's just because I'm an old viejo. How old are you?
I'm 23.
You're 23.
I'm 23. I always have my ID ready.
Yeah. I imagine you get that a lot, right? I mean,
yeah.
So tell us about your family. Where did you grow up? What schools did you go to? Or was it local, or are you a transplant from some other place?
Yeah, so up until I was 13 years old, I lived in Yakima, Washington.
Okay.
And then after that, we moved into Kennewick, Washington. So I went to high school at Southridge.
Southridge, when you were in high school, yeah. What about before that? Where in Yakima did you go? Were you?
I went to, what middle school? Union Gap.
Union Gap. Okay, yeah, because I'm from Toppenish.
Oh, really?
And my whole family, we went to Toppenish High School. We were Wildcats, cool. So Yakima, the whole Lower Valley up there is what we do.
Oh yeah.
So you've been in the Tri-Cities for what, about 10 years or so?
Yeah.
Cool. How did you actually learn how to cut and prepare meat? And I guess, how did you first get started in the meat industry at such a young age?
So at first I was just going to high school, and I started when I was around, I think, a freshman. I was a freshman in high school when my dad, he told me that he needed a worker at the meat market in Pasco.
Now this is not Juanito's Prime Meats. This is a different place.
This was Los Juanes.
Okay.
It was I think it was still called Los Juanes because they ended up switching the name to Juanito's Foods. Gotcha. He said he needed somebody. He wanted me to work, and I wasn't doing the best in school, so that was another motivator. Like, okay, so if you think school is not the route that you're gonna take, I think you should start working, start getting some experience in the workforce. And so I started off just washing, doing all the washing, and pretty much a butcher's apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I got into it. And at first I didn't like it too much, but then the more that I got better at it, the more that there was a sense of like I could compete with some of the guys and see like how fast you could cut and how good you can cut a ribeye or a ranchera.
So tell me, can you put your fingers up for the camera? Yeah. How many do you got? You still got all of them?
Yeah, I still have all of them.
I mean, I imagine guys who have lost a finger or whatever. I mean, when you're a butcher, that's part of the deal, right?
Part of the game.
That's like being a football player and having bad knees or whatever. I mean, you're going to get your knee blown out sooner or later. It's just, man. So this is interesting. Interesting because, I'm just recently starting to really appreciate the tools of the trade that you've used for many years. Yeah. I'm talking about knives and high-end cutlery. And for me, I'm fascinated by the variety of blades, the shapes of the blades, the lengths, the different types of steel and the layering that they do, of different layers of steel. And then, different knives have different angles of the blade that you actually have the bevel, that makes it sharp, right? That angle of bevel. I'm also learning about the unique differences between like Japanese, American, European knives, in particular like Germany makes some good knives. Oh, yeah. So what are some of your favorite tools as a butcher, and do you have high-end knives that you really like?
Yeah, so I've always used the German or Swiss knives.
Oh, yeah, Swiss as well.
Victorino.
Okay.
Victorino, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to be honest with you, but the Swiss knives, or the Victorino, those are really good knives. I own like a full collection of
do you?
Yeah, the Swiss knives. So I have my own collection, and I have my ones that I use for work that I'm using every single day, and they last many years.
So I'm a big fan of The Sopranos. You ever heard of that show? Yeah. Tony Soprano, the mafia show. Well, they had friends who were butchers, and they would sometimes bring their enemies over to the butcher shop, and you'd never see them again, and they'd cut them up. And you haven't done that in your butcher shop?
Not yet. We haven't done it yet.
So you've got some good knives. You're collecting some knives. Do you sharpen your own knives? I mean, it's important to keep them sharp, right? Especially with what you do. Oh, yeah. It's essential. And I'm building my collection, so I've started also purchasing whetstones and other tools so that as you're using the whetstone, like guides that actually keep the knife at an angle of, say, 12 degrees or 20 degrees, because that's what the manufacturer says that's what you want to get it razor sharp. So do you sharpen your own knives? And if so, how did you learn how to do that?
Just the more experienced butchers were pretty much passing down the knowledge to me. I sharpen my own knives, yes. Yeah. I got the honing steel and everything. We do use the whetstones as well. We have the three, what is it called? The three.
There's different grits, right?
Yeah, different grits. So there's like a three.
There's all kinds. Yeah. They range from my research, you can go in the low hundreds, like 1, 2, 3, 400, which is like a coarse grit, right? Coarse. The higher the number, the finer the grit.
Yep.
And then, so like I've got Whetstone, I've got a 400, a 1,000, a 3,000. No, I'm sorry, a 1,000, 6,000, and a 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I got from the low hundreds to the 10,000 is the highest.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's pretty much all I really need because I can, kind of pick. Some knives you don't need to go up to 10,000, but the Japanese knives are so damn sharp. I mean, you do the paper thing where you cut it with the paper and it just like, you don't even have to push the knife on the paper. It just like, it almost parts before the razor hits it, It's crazy.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. So, but when I watch those videos on how to sharpen your own knives, it's not, if you don't have the right tools and you're just holding the knife at an angle that looks, you don't know, you could be changing as you're moving the knife. That angle could be changing.
Yep.
You have to be a real artist or you have to have the right tools or both to get it very uniform. You know what I'm saying? Have you run into that kind of a deal where you thought your knife was sharp because you've done it a lot and then you go back and it's like, oh man, I got to go back and redo this?
Yeah. I find myself sharpening my knives every 2-3 days. We also have meat slicers.
Yeah.
That need to be sharpened as well. Those take the most of the beating actually because we do a lot of taco meat for a lot of restaurants and taco trucks. So those are cutting thousands of pounds a day.
So are you sharpening them like every week? I mean,
every day.
Or every day.
Meat slicers get sharpened every day.
So you have multiple slicers. You'll pull one off, put another one on, take that one to the shop, or you take it to the back and sharpen it while the other one's being used. I mean, it's just crazy.
So right here at the Kennewick location, we have 2 running all day. Yeah.
So when it comes to the tools of the trade and the skills and the knowledge that it takes to cut and trim beautiful pieces of meat, and the meat that you're handling is often hundreds of dollars just for a single piece, or $150, $200 for a single piece of meat. So you don't want to screw it up. No. Who has had the most influence on you in learning these skills and this knowledge base? Who's the one person that's had the most influence on you? Or is it a team of people?
I would say for the most part, when it comes to actually cutting meat, it would be the team of people. I really wanted to get into it. I saw other people cutting it, and I said, why can't we? As far as selling it and marketing it and all that stuff, I think my dad is the one that kind of
influenced
me the most. And
I could see that. Yeah. And that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It's because you're kind of in that line already in your family.
Yeah.
So your average person probably has very little appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes in a butcher shop. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people go to the store and they're like, oh, hey, I'm going to make steaks tonight. I'm going to go get some New Yorks or some ribeyes or some skirt steak or whatever the case is, right? They don't know what it takes to put that piece of meat there. And they don't know a lot of times what kind of a quality of piece of meat they're getting. It makes a huge difference, the quality of the meat, before you actually start preparing it and barbecuing it.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess my question is, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Can you describe, say, the differences between how you would butcher a pig versus a cow, beef versus pork? What are the major differences as a butcher that you look at?
I think the major differences is that beef obviously is a little bit more expensive, but pork, you're not taking out, we don't get a whole pig and break it down.
You don't?
We get it by the piece.
Slabs? You get slabs of it?
Yeah, okay. Big pork shoulders and pork legs and pork loin.
Okay.
And then we'll break that down.
Okay.
We'll make, cut it into pork chops, or we'll do some stew meat or pozole, chunks. What else? Taco meat, like for the adobada, the al pastor, all that stuff. Yeah.
So with beef, I imagine you get a lot more cuts.
Yes.
Right? Because there's so many different.
There's more variety.
I mean, we were talking the other day when I went into the store and was talking to you about the podcast, and you sold me on bavette.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't eaten it yet, but man, I tell you what, when I put it in the freezer until I got the guys coming over next week, and then we're gonna barbecue that up.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about different cuts of beef right now. Are some cuts more challenging to obtain from the slabs of cow that you get? And do you have favorite cuts that you like carving out?
Yeah, so some of the most challenging ones are probably the flat iron, the
Flat iron
bavette,
steaks. Mm-hmm.
the chuck eye.
Oh,
Those are the top 3 on my list that
Yeah.
taste amazing.
chuck eye. People
But
don't
a
know
lot
about
of
it,
people
but
don't know
it's
about
as
it.
good
Yeah.
and as tender, sometimes even more tender than the ribeye.
Ribeye, yeah.
But it does have that little area of gristle sometimes that you get, right?
Yeah.
So if you can separate that out,
Yeah. You can get a pretty good...
and the price is like well
Yeah.
under half of
Yeah.
what you pay for a ribeye.
Yeah.
The chuck eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't know about that one too.
They don't... Well, usually the butchers, they'll save 3 or 4 pieces, and then if they sell, they sell, you know?
Yeah.
But ribeyes, they'll obviously be a little bit more expensive, and there will be a little bit more ribeyes to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what about butchering a pig? Now, you said that you're not really taking the whole pig and you're cutting it up, but you're getting slabs. What are some of your favorite pork cuts? And in particular, I want to ask you, have you heard of jowl bacon? Because some people, I'll go to some butchers and they'll like, I don't know, we don't have jowl bacon. I don't know what you're talking about. But they have it in some Safeways, especially like in the valley. Up in the valley,
Really?
you can buy jowl bacon. I imagine it comes from the jowls of the pig. That's why they call it that.
Yeah.
But it's like our family's favorite bacon. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it. I've seen videos on it, but I haven't tried it myself.
Oh yeah,
I haven't tried it.
If you haven't, you've got to. I'm just wondering if you can actually slice it up and put jowl bacon out at Juanito's. I didn't know if it was something that you guys can do, but
yeah.
once people try it, they like.
If we can get Wagyu, we can get some jowl bacon.
So, what are some of your favorite pork cuts?
My favorite pork cut. I like, let's say, like I kind of want to show off for some friends or some family.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do some pork tomahawks.
Really, they have pork tomahawks?
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding?
Oh yeah.
It's like a pork chop with the big bone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Sometimes you can make them with the skin on, and it's just a different experience, you know.
And you're saying it's good.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's something I learned just now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I was Aaron the butcher, my freezer would be filled with upper prime USDA and American Wagyu, the higher grade American stuff, the ribeye cap, the bone-in ribeyes, the boneless ribeyes, and the tomahawk ribeyes, all like the Snake River Farms gold level cuts. That's what I really like. The filet mignon and even a bone-in filet. Have you guys have bone-in filet sometimes or not?
We've got it in. It's not a super common thing that
It isn't, but if you've ever had it with the bone in, if you've ever barbecued or broiled a bone-in filet, that flavor of the bone, you never get it at a restaurant unless you go to a really high-end steakhouse. Sometimes they'll have bone-in filet mignon, and it's worth it, man. I'm telling you, it is so good. And then there's skirt steak. So I was raised in California for a portion of my life, and we go back there all the time. The skirt steak that they have in California seems to be different than the skirt steak they sell like up here in Washington. And I don't know if it's how they're cutting it or what that is, but have you seen a difference between skirt steaks? Are there different types of skirt steak?
Yeah. So there's the inside skirt and then there's the outside skirt.
Explain what that means.
One's in the interior of the ribs and then the other one's on the outside.
Okay.
So one's like a thin strip, and then there's a inside skirt that kind of looks like the flat meat where I cut you the bavette. That one is thicker and it has longer fibers and tends to be a little bit more chewy.
Tougher. Okay.
There's the outside
so that's
skirt.
probably what's happening is that sometimes when I go to places and I'm getting skirt, it's that inside skirt,
maybe
not the outside.
Maybe that's what it could be. But yeah, those two are referred to as skirt steak. Sometimes I get customers asking me for skirt steak and they think the flat meat, the ranchera is.
Right.
But that's actually different.
And that
one's different. That one's flat meat.
Yeah.
That one comes from the sirloin flat meat.
Okay. So Japanese A5, we'll talk a little bit about what A5 means for those people who don't know, but that's like the very high end Japanese, highly marbled steaks. That's something that I really like as well, but I can't eat a lot of it. It's too rich. I mean, I can take a couple of steaks and prepare them and then cut them up for hors d'oeuvres or appetizers for people. If you got 4 or 5 people, maybe 6 or 7 people or more,
Yeah.
a couple of ribeye steaks, and they cut them usually like they're 3/4 inch. They're thinner. You can really give people enough so that they're satisfied because it's so much umami flavor and fat content that you really can't eat like a 16 or 18 ounce steak like that. It's just so rich, right?
Yeah, it's really rich. It's I think two of those 3/4 to a
Maybe a half to
quarter inch
3/4
to 3/4 of an inch is good for 5 to 8 people.
Yeah,
depending on
because you're just giving them a few bites, and then you go on and eat your dinner, your regular dinner.
yeah.
So in your freezer, what are your favorite cuts to eat and serve your family?
Oh, I love my tomahawks when I'm trying to show off.
Yeah.
I like making those. I love.
So what grade of tomahawk do you like to serve?
The
Aussie ones or
the Australian Wagyu, or I've tried so there's another brand that's not Snake River Farms. It's Masami. Masami is a good one too.
Okay.
The thing about Snake River Farms, they're really good at marketing. That's why everybody knows about Snake River Farms.
Right.
But there's also other ranches in California. For example, Masami.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
How's their pricing? Is it reasonable too?
Yeah, it's reasonable. It's around the same as
Snake
River Farms.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got our hands on several different American Wagyu farms. So
yeah, we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
Yeah.
So there are many different types of high-end beef cuts, like we just got done talking about, that are available, and if people are willing to pay the price. Can you help our audience understand the differences, like in taste and tenderness and price, between, say, USDA prime steaks, Japanese Wagyu, American, and Australian? Those seem to be the big categories, right? I mean, I'm sure there are others, but you got Australian Wagyu, you got American Wagyu, you got Japanese Wagyu. When I look at it, I would rank Japanese Wagyu as kind of the top, but it's much more marbled.
Oh yeah.
And then the American Wagyu, I would put it second. It's marbled and it's got a unique type of flavor and tenderness. Then I would put the Australian below that. But I don't know how do you rank it from your personal preference?
Personally, if I'm going to make a nice steak for myself, I would say Australian Wagyu's the one that I would go to.
Mm-hmm.
But also Australian Wagyu is a very broad term as well, because there's a lot of different farms that are in Australia that are producing Wagyu, high quality Wagyu, and then there's the crossbreed farms as well.
Yep.
So it's a pretty broad term, but
yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, when I say American Wagyu, that could mean any number of farms, just like you said, term. And Australian too. And I imagine you get a whole spectrum of different types of tenderness and marbling, depending on where you go to get it, and then pricing. Price plays a big role, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
man. So in the U.S., people when they go to a regular grocery store to buy steak, your average consumer, they are typically looking at basically if you're just getting a steak that isn't a Wagyu type steak or higher, you're going to get select, choice, or prime. Basically 3 categories. And so when you're talking about Wagyu beef, though, with that extreme level of marbling and fat content, the grading scale gets much more specific and a little bit complicated for the non-meat kind of person, right? So there's the BMS, which stands for Beef Marbling Standard, and that's on a scale of 1 to 12. Now, in Japan, from what I've read, the Japanese don't even consider 1 and 2. They actually go from 3 to 12. 3 is about the lowest end they deal with. 1 and 2 is like, well, hell, there's no fat in these anyway. We don't even talk about these, right? Yeah. And then there's also this quality and yield score. Now, when you look at like a Japanese A5 steak, that's the highest grade. There's A, B, and C categories, and that talks about the actual yield score of the fat content. And then there's the quality, which is the distribution and the intramuscular fat content. And that's graded 1 through 5. So the top would be A5 and the bottom would be C1. Mm-hmm. So then you have C12345, B12345, and A12345. So you got this whole spectrum of different grades of steaks, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on the tasting and experience of these very high luxury grades when you're explaining it to a customer who walks into your store and they ask you questions like, oh, this says A5, but why is it $125 for that steak? But it's only this other steak over here that looks kind of like it. It's only like $60 or $30.
Yeah.
How do you explain that to them?
So if they're comparing to regular USDA graded beef that's raised here in the U.S., I would say prime is the highest grade that you can get in the U.S., produced by the U.S. So if it's USDA graded and it grades prime, that's the highest, and we work with a lot of that. The ribeyes, the New Yorks, some of the tomahawks that we carry, they're prime. So that's already top 2% of what the U.S. produces.
Right.
That's top 2% beef in the whole U.S. is graded prime. Everything else is choice or select.
Right.
We never work with select. We don't.
Yeah, I mean that's just
pretty. That's pretty low quality.
Right.
For
that's
us.
like what you get at McDonald's when you order a hamburger.
Yeah, maybe even less because there's ungraded. There's ungraded.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah.
But choice and up is what we work with. Choice, depending on the brand, can actually be sometimes better than the prime.
I've seen that.
Right.
I agree with you 100%.
There's double R.
Yeah.
Upper 2/3 choice. That's better than some brands that are prime.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
I've seen that. Yeah.
That's what usually people get the idea when you start talking to them about, okay, prime's the best in the U.S. This is like high end beef. This is some of the best that you can get in the Tri-Cities. So now I know why, you know. In terms of the Japanese Wagyu, I've tried A4, I've tried A5. I mean A4 and A3.
Oh, okay.
And of course A5.
Yeah.
A4 and A3 are kind of similar to the experience of a Australian Wagyu, like the 8 to 9 or the 6 to 7 Australian Wagyu ribeyes. Those are similar to the A4, A3. A5 starts at, I think, BMS 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I think that's where they start at, and then they'll go up from there.
Yeah. The ones that I've had on the A5 have been like BMS 11, 12.
Yeah.
And you're paying top dollar for those. Yeah. But then again, when you get to that level, it's so damn rich. I mean, it's just like, man, after you've eaten it, you can feel the coating on the inside of your mouth of the fat, that's kind of residual after you eat a few bites of it. Yeah. You can run your tongue across the roof of your mouth and be like, there's some fat there.
A lot of people don't know, but the grading scale is actually based off of how much intramuscular fat.
Yeah. And how it's distributed.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't count the fat on the edges of the steak, right? No. I mean, it's got to be interspersed and marbled, kind of uniform. The more uniform it is, the better, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that. I actually always tell people fat is flavor because a lot of people don't know
exactly
how it works.
Here's another thing I found out just recently is that a lot of the fats in the Wagyu, the Japanese steaks, it's the healthy fats.
Yeah.
It's the monosaturated fats or something like that are actually healthy for you. So if you're going to eat beef and you have the money to do so, eat the higher end beef because it's healthy for you.
Healthier.
I mean, that's my plug for high end beef anyway. So tell us about Juanito's Prime Meats a little bit. Now, this is your place of work. What types of meats and cuts do you offer there?
We offer anything from Wagyu, ribeyes, New Yorks, to your normal pozole meat, birria, beef chunks, and
thinly sliced stuff too, right?
For carne asada,
right?
For your barbecue grill, we have regular stuff as well. We don't just work with high end, but we do move a lot of the high end stuff.
What do you call the bavette that's thinly sliced? What is it? Arrachera?
Arrachera, yep.
Yeah. I bought that from you guys a couple of times. I absolutely loved it. My wife loved it. And it's so easy to cook, man. I mean, on the grill, you got 30 seconds to get it hot. 30 seconds, pull it, and it's just delicious.
Hot and fast.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yep. And it's like you have a stack of it, right? Like you're making tortillas, right? I mean, you just pull them, you put them on, you just flap them on there, and then pull them off. It's just, it's great.
For tacos, yep.
So, what are your best-selling cuts and grades of meat? Because you sell a variety of grades, but also a variety of cuts,
Yeah.
and so, you source it from different places. But what are some of the best-selling ones that you've got?
The best-selling beef in the summer would probably be the arrachera.
Really?
That one's
Yeah.
the easiest, quickest, super, tender, pull apart.
Mhm.
We use prime quality arrachera, so it's gonna be well marbled.
Right.
It's gonna be like a melt in your mouth kind of thing.
It is.
Yeah, even if it's not Wagyu, it's really
Oh,
good.
man.
It's top quality.
I've been enjoying your high-grade, what I call luxury meats since you first opened. Can you talk a little bit about where you actually get your meat from?
Yeah.
What ranches you actually typically... And I know that it changes. I'm sure that,
Yeah.
If you get feedback from customers and you're like, maybe we ought to look at a different ranch to get some stuff from, I'm sure you do that too, right?
Yeah. Locally, we like to work with Double R Ranch. That one's up there for us. They're
Mhm.
actually owned by the same people as Snake River Farms, so
Okay.
they're really good quality. We like the color, and we
Mhm.
like the textures, and the yield that we can get out of that certain
Yeah.
ranch. We find that they're pretty top quality. In terms of Wagyu, I mean we work with an importer that imports Japanese Wagyu, and we've worked with different prefectures.
Yeah.
So Miyazaki, Kagoshima.
Kagashima's my favorite one so far.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't had... I mean, that's good that you mentioned that because I wanted to mention that too, and
Yeah.
I forgot to put that in our list of things to talk about. But in Japan, there's they're almost like counties,
Yeah.
I think Benton County is probably bigger than half of Japan anyway, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's
Yeah.
prefectures
Yeah.
and there's rules assigned to, how they handle and treat the cows and what they're fed and all of that. And then, of course, when they're butchered and stuff, they have to meet these certain standards.
Oh yeah.
And these prefectures will market just the meat that's made and grown there in the prefecture. So you mentioned the one that starts with an M,
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, and then the Kagoshima. I have had A5 Wagyu from both prefectures, but not from any other prefectures. And I know there's a lot of others.
Yeah.
But they have unique flavors associated with the meat that comes from them.
Yeah.
That's what I've read.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know yet because I haven't done them all, but there's one that kind of tastes kind of like olives.
Mhm.
They said that from what
Olive
I've read,
head?
yeah, it kind of tastes a little bit like it has olive because I think they feed them
Yeah.
olives. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy stuff. I mean, every ranch has a different tradition.
Signature and tradition. Yeah.
They pride themselves in their own little specific things that they do differently. But I think the Wagyu ranches down there in Japan, they focus on quality
Yeah.
before cost, before
yeah.
expenses,
Yeah.
before
And it's very
Yeah.
based in tradition, steeped in hundreds, if not thousands of years of tradition.
yeah.
Yeah. And they have an Olympics.
Yeah.
They have a Wagyu,
Wagyu
Olympics.
Olympics,
And the prefectures, they send their best cuts,
Yep.
and they get graded and they win medals. I mean, can you imagine being a judge?
Yeah, everything's so good.
Man, you know what I noticed, though? For quite a while now, you guys have had a few food trucks in your parking lot. And it says, the food is made from the, Wagyu and stuff for these food trucks. That, to me, is really interesting. I have not eaten any food from your 2 or 3 food trucks that you have. You might even have more than that. But my question is, talk about the meats that you use for the foods in those trucks, and also any maybe events. Do you guys cater? Talk about some current events that you got coming up.
Yeah, so right there at our food truck at the Kennewick location on Clearwater, we do Wagyu tacos. We do Wagyu kebabs, call them brochetas, and we do Wagyu burritos. We can pretty much do Wagyu anything. We work with American Wagyu for that stuff to make it affordable, and some people are not used to the richness that Australian Wagyu and Japanese Wagyu and sometimes American Wagyu can provide. So we use Wagyu for the tenderness and the flavor that it can provide to in this case a Mexican
Yeah.
spot. But yeah, that's what we use for that. And then for our regular tacos, we do use choice or prime or higher.
So what events do you have coming up that you guys participate in?
We do cater, and
Huh?
we have a big event coming up at the Hot Post Center. There's going to be a kickboxing
Oh, at
tournament.
Hapo. Oh, really?
Yeah, they're on December
Is it
30th.
Muay Thai or is it?
Kickboxing?
It's kickboxing.
Kickboxing, yeah.
Is it like some U.S. federation of like a championship that's being done, or is it a circuit
Yeah,
or
it's
what?
like a amateur.
Okay.
Amateur kickboxing.
Cool.
The guy's local. The guy that
Oh,
started
okay.
it, everything. He was a professional MMA fighter.
Okay.
Before, but yeah, he's the one that's organizing everything.
You know his name?
Yeah, Ernesto Toscano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing that event here.
And that'll be at Hapo. When is that happening?
December 30th.
Oh, wow. Right
Yeah.
before the new year. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's going to be good.
We're excited for that.
So I guess my final question, Jose, is where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, you've been doing this for a little while now, but you're a baby. I mean, you're only 23 years old. You got your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself having more stores throughout the Washington, at least. We want to open one in Richland here soon, so we're still looking at locations and stuff like that. But I think there's more of a demand for high-end meats now. People are learning a little bit more about beef.
Yeah.
There's more videos out there. There's more, with the internet, the knowledge is out there. The information is out there. It's whether if somebody's interested or not and trying and learning about the marbling scores and all this different kinds of quality.
Yeah.
So I think that the demand is getting higher for quality meat. We are looking at locations in Richland. We're looking at locations in Yakima.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you're from Yakima. You know as well as I do, Yakima doesn't have crap for good meat.
No.
I'm telling you. I mean, most of my life I spent, you know, in Toppenish. What do you do for excitement? You go to Yakima.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
You just drive up there and cruise the Ave back and forth. That's all we did.
Yeah.
And they got nothing for meat. But, I mean, if you guys popped up over there,
Yeah.
I bet you would have a huge following there, too. There's such, in Eastern Washington, unless you're in Spokane or Portland or Vancouver and those areas where they've got more population, Seattle, you're not going to find the availability of being able to get that. So what does that force customers to do? Well, they have to order it online.
Yeah.
Ordering it online is okay, but, then you risk the quality, because they got to pack it with dry ice. They got to pack it with whatever and get it to you. And,
Well, I think a lot of people, they like that sense of connection that they might have with the butcher.
With the butcher, yeah.
Yeah, like you're walking in, hey, how's it going?
Well,
What do you recommend? I already tried the ribeye,
Yeah.
I tried the New York. What do you recommend? I recommend a bavette steak. And there you go. All
Well,
of a sudden, you got this
and-
connection, a relationship with your butcher.
Yeah. And what you did for me, like
Yeah.
the other day when I came in, you actually custom cut some things. You're like, oh, you like it thicker? I'll go get you one, and I'll cut you, real thick steaks.
Yeah.
Because some people really like those extra thick steaks. I do,
Yeah.
And that's good to be able to have that relationship with the butcher, because you can get stuff custom done. And you go online, you can't. You get
Yeah.
but whatever it says on there, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, well, you have no idea how glad I am that we met. The Tri-Cities area has been in dire need of a business that caters to people who really want to have the very best beef that you can buy.
Yep.
And finally, we now have that business right here in our own backyard that provides the world's best cuts of meat. Jose, I've learned a lot today about you and the art of butchering, and I appreciate the opportunity to host you today. Before we go, could you please remind our audience again about Juanito's Prime Meats?
Juanito's Prime Meats, located in Kennewick. We got one on Clearwater, very close to Winco.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Juanito's Foods in Pasco. That's a big grocery store. We have a big section of produce.
Now, do you sell the high-end meats there as well, or is it only at...
We do. We focus a little bit more on that in the Kennewick location.
Right. Okay.
But we do have some cuts in the Pasco location. It's just a different demographic over there.
Right.
So
I gotcha. Yep.
Yeah. So we sell a little bit different things, but we do try to have the same things. Yeah.
Well, you also sell more than meat, right?
Yeah. We got a grocery section. We got a produce section at both locations. And soon in the Kennewick location, we are going to be opening a hot deli We're going to have a kitchen.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
we're going to have chicharrones, carnitas.
Oh, God. Don't even say that.
Yeah. So
Seriously?
Yeah. This coming year, actually.
I can't wait.
We'll have it all ready to go and running in March.
I can't wait.
So, yeah.
That's really good news. Chicharrones or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think I'm turning into one, actually.
Yeah.
I've been eating them so much lately. My
Oh,
wife
really?
gets them all the time.
Yeah.
For me. Sheesh. What about the quality of the produce there you guys have is great, and you sell beer and beverages and everything else too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know a few times I've been in there and I didn't want to go to 3 different stores, so I just went in and got jalapenos and cilantro and other things, and you sell salsas and chile and all kinds of stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of a one-stop shop in a lot of ways.
We're trying our best to make everything a one-stop shop, get the best meat in town,
Yeah.
get some of the best produce, and people like it. People are liking it.
You're doing great. Congratulations on your position and on the success of your businesses.
Yep.
I'd like to thank you again, Jose, for joining us on Live the Good Life. That's all we have for today's episode. Again, for more of Living the Good Life, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Aaron's Wine Chronicles, or you can go online at aaronswinechronicles.com. And for a video podcast version of the episode, you can visit my YouTube channel at the @ Aaron's Wine Chronicles 6666. So again, thank you all for listening, and remember, wherever you go, whenever you can, always live the good life. Until next time.